Rory, you have a background in radio. Can you give us a little glimpse of what you did?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the other Youth Ministry podcast. Touching lives. Gosh, dang it.
Ministry. Let's start over on that.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the other Student Ministry podcast. Touching lives around the globe.
No, that's good. Guys, welcome to the other Student Ministry podcast. And we're here for our second episode. And we're excited. If you have not subscribed to us, you should. Hit that subscribe button, y'all.
Woo! Yeah.
Google Play, iTunes, YouTube, all those things. And we're here. I'm here with Matthew Ferrer,
Hey.
worship leader of CCV, and our special guest, Rory Elderage, not to be confused or related to John Eldridge of Wild at Heart,
Where the wild things are.
and that one as well. But just same last name. He's going to be our guest today, talking about hacks and starting a new position. And of course, we have Sean on the couch.
Shawnee.
And we have another great guest who's just kind of hanging out, doing her summer camp thing. Her name. You're working so hard, and you're going to speak into this too, because you started a new position, Helena,
Boom.
who's our groups and outreach director for student ministry. And so, yeah. Oh, Sean on the couch, just calling her out.
The truth comes out.
It's so good. We'll get to that later, Helena. We'll talk about it. We are so excited to be here and just talking about hacks and creativity, leadership, and life when it comes to student ministry. So today's episode is going to be about like starting a new position and hacks on, because most chances are there's always a new youth pastor somewhere, or you're starting something new, or bringing on someone new volunteer, blah, 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 or you're taking over a ministry. The idea on this is that, okay, what is some hacks on what to do, what not to do to make sure that your transition into a new position is super successful and good. And that's why we have Rory here.
Howdy, everybody.
Yeah, because you're new to this position. You're like a year in.
Yeah.
Right? And like you've learned a whole bunch of stuff. So can you give us a little background on like who you are, what you do, what you're doing now?
Yeah.
With us?
So I jumped into this new role. I'm the lead family pastor here at Christ Church of the Valley. But before that, I had a background in youth ministry. The better part of a decade I spent up in the Seattle area at Overlake Christian Church. Got to pour into the youth and young adult communities there. Absolutely loved it. And then one fine Christmas morning, my in-laws let us know that they were moving to Southern California, and this absolutely broke my wife's heart because we have 4 kids, 5 and under right now, and we were scrambling like,
Yeesh.
What the cripes are we gonna do? and so God moved. Actually, just a few days later, got a call from the executive pastor down here about a potential opening. And so started a conversation and really didn't see ourselves moving to Southern California. But here we are a little over a year and a half later. And man, it's been awesome. So part of my role here is helping oversee everything children, youth, college. And it's been awesome because we've been able to establish some really amazing teams, and our ministries are, I think, just on the peak, the verge of really doing some amazing things that they're already doing, but I just see more and more here in the next weeks and months to come.
Yeah.
So good stuff.
Yeah. So interesting. You mentioned teams. When you came down from Washington, you kind of came into, there was pretty established teams. And
Yeah.
what was that like coming in and being the new guy, but knowing that you are now the one who kind of has to like steer the ship a little bit? What was that like to jump in relationally, professionally, into some teams that were fairly tight knit, but needed some direction? What was that like?
Yeah, well, I came in and it was unique because the student ministry team, like you guys, you're firing on all cylinders. However, I did come in some of the other areas of ministry which I oversee. I came in with a mandate to change, and so that was a unique sphere to be in because
Like from the higher ups, right?
Yeah, kind of from the higher ups said, hey, there are some things that we need to work on. Student ministry was up and to the right, and so really my focus wasn't there initially. It was a lot in some other key areas for us, and so that was the challenge, is how to navigate that well, knowing that you have this mandate to change, but at the same time too, not wanting to go in right away and just blowing everything up. Building relationships. I would say the backbone of everything we do is relational ministry, and even my approach as quote unquote the boss, I want to have that done through relationships. So it was this tricky balance of figuring out how to do that. So initially coming on though, it was me thinking through how do I best serve these people? Every day before my boys go off to preschool, I gather them up, we pray, and then the last thing I say to them, I say, leaders are what? And they yell back to me, they say, servants. And so that's just kind of a motto that I learned 10 years ago from the youth pastor who is over me. And so that's been kind of the approach I've taken, or at least tried to take in this new role here at CCV is I'm a servant. So whatever that looks like, I'm going to serve these people, even if that means serving them or leading them potentially into a new season, which we've had to do for a few folks. And so,
do you have any any strategies, any hacks? I feel like this would be a great chance just to dive straight in. What were some hacks that were essential to making that happen?
Yeah, what are hacks on like what don't do this when you first come in, right? And then what are some hacks of like do this when you first come in? Because you inherited a pretty decently sized team. So you had this children's ministry, which had like a good group of people. You had the students and college ministry, which had another group of people, and like all the volunteers that come along with it. So, and you came in with the mandate to change certain things. What are like hacks on, don't do this when you first get here? Or like, what are some tendencies that you maybe want to do, but you like withheld?
Yeah.
Even knowing that you had a vision and a calling and a mandate to say, this is where you want to go versus like, but I need to wait to do those things. Like what are some of those things that you're like, I want to do it, but I'm going to wait.
I think initially the idea of, sometimes we picture ourselves as leaders being, I got to have all the answers or whatever. Well, this was really my first rodeo, especially in children's ministry. Now, I had some background in that, but I wasn't well-versed in this thing. I understood systems, I understood youth ministry, but children's ministry was new. So to give myself time to like kind of figure out that space a little bit, to read about that space, learn everything from, all the gurus like the Reggie Joiners of the world when it came to children's ministry. But not only that, being okay not knowing everything. And I feel like that was the challenge is like, you think as a leader, I've got to have all the answers. And really you don't. In fact, you need to surround yourself with folks who are smarter than you. And so that's what I really tried to do initially, was to find folks who were well-versed in children's ministry and learn that space. A lot of phone conversations with other children's pastors, a lot of just reading up on that space. And then too, the team that had been here for years and years and years, really like seeking out their wisdom and saying, hey, help me understand this space more, because all of us, we want to serve the kids of this church, and I want to do that well, and I don't want to come here with the pretense that I know everything. So I think don't come in, number one, thinking you know everything, especially if you don't. But number two, to come in with that humble approach. And one book that I read that was really, really important in this was The Ideal Team Player by Patrick Lencioni. In fact, it's kind of framed how we like even hire people now, but it's this approach of being a humble, hungry, and a smart leader. Humble, again, you're trying to surround yourself with other people who are smarter than you. You don't have all the answers. Hungry, though, I was absolutely passionate about serving the kids and the youth of this church, and I'm wanting to see that grow. I don't want it to stay stagnant. I'm not okay with maintaining. I want to take new ground, as we say at CCB often, but then also being people smart and realizing that if any of this is going to take place, it's got to happen with people. You've got to be smart with people, emotionally intelligent with people. And if you're going to have any success, if you're going to see any of that growth, it's going to happen through people. So kind of like taking that thought and that framework, that was my approach to this new position, is how can I best position myself to be humble? Because I know in and of myself, I'm not. And so I've got to just love and serve people and not think I know it all. I'm going to be hungry about making this better. So I'm going to meet with people and we're going to talk about change and we're going to try to build something together. And then smart. I just want to love other people well. And if that means stacking chairs, I'll stack chairs. If that means buying people coffee or donuts, I'll do that. But that was really my approach.
Yeah. Follow-up kind of question on that, because year after you came in or whatever, you came in as like boss man, right?
Right.
And it was like,
you're getting a new dad.
Yeah. We got a new dad. And yeah, so it was a good thing. So, but I could say a year later, and this is not just me because you're my boss, but you've done I feel like you've done a really good job of like navigating.
Thanks, man.
Like both of these teams. And so I guess the question based off all of those things is, that where you wanted to go, where you wanted to do, and like things needed to change, and there's a lot of difficult conversations that needed to
Yeah.
happen. How, like, what are some hacks for people, like, chances are if they come on board in a new position, they know they need to change certain things or want to change certain things, but there's certain sacred cows or things that don't want
Right.
to change. How did you get people on board through the conversations, and like how do you get people on your side to see what you see, to see what you've been doing, to like, okay, hey, we've been doing it this way, but we're going to do it this way now. And I think you've done it pretty, like, you've changed. Children's ministry is way different now, a year
Yeah.
later compared to where we were. So like, how did you do that?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure some people like want to know the skill on how to do that.
Well, number one, I have not done it perfectly, but I am, when I look back at it over the course of the year, I'm like, oh wow, we have made some exciting changes. I think the first thing that comes to mind, knowing that you're going to have hard conversations and stuff, is to embrace that and actually run towards the mess. I think there's a lot of times you get overwhelmed as a leader, and you need to have the conversation, but you also know how much weight that is, and you're nervous to do it. And what I found is the longer I just bear that weight, the harder it actually is. If I'll just embrace the fact that this is a hard conversation and actually run towards it, I found that that's the best thing to actually do. And not only that too, there's some cool little hacks that I've learned in the process, is especially when you're looking at the potential of having to unleash people into their next season, which is a really, really hard conversation. I think the number one thing you can do is cast the vision, but then also put down on paper what that actually looks like. Like, write it out. Here was the standard. Here's the new standard, and I'm just writing this out on paper. But if you can't meet the standard, it's totally fine. Let's have a conversation about that. But we're probably gonna have a conversation about just moving you into your next season, and that's been the hardest thing. Another part of this would actually be having people who might be struggling meeting the standard to actually provide opportunities and coaching for them to get there, not just like lip service, but actually providing them with those resources. And at the same time too, putting together what I call like a personal improvement plan. And I'd want this for any employee, whether they're thriving or not, but like, here's how you can get better. And it's, again, putting something in writing on paper. Hey, this will move you forward in this next quarter, in this next half year, so that people actually know what they need to go for. And in doing that, people, again, if it's a hard conversation of maybe moving on to a new ministry position or into a new season for them, they will see what's on paper, and they will either self-select in or self-select out. And so that's kind of one of those hacks. It's hard. This is not easy stuff. These are people that you love, that you're trying to love and serve. You're doing ministry together. But at the same time too, we're here to grow God's kingdom. And so I think a healthy way, again, would be like a personal improvement plan, getting it on paper and having people sign and say, hey, this is what I'm committing to. Or, you know what, I realized for the season of life I'm in, I can't meet the standard, so I'm gonna self-select out, if that makes sense.
Because that's like, it's very similar to like when I took over student ministry 3 years ago. There's a certain amount of leaders. The leader who was here before, way different than me, had a different leadership style and all that, and kind of came in and said, oh, here's the new way of operating, and to be a volunteer. I think we started with like 30, and within 6 months there was 6. And, and part of those conversations were either, I was here until a new leader came, and then I'm out, and, here's what it is. And then other people said they were on board, but then in reality, they weren't. And so having those tough conversations of like, hey, this is where we're going, and this is what you're doing, and they don't match up.
Yeah.
And like, let's kind of talk about what that looks like, or maybe it's your time to serve somewhere else, or, let's get on the vision, on where we're going. So, because I feel like, at least with you and the children's ministry, it's been cool to watch personally.
Yeah. And like change is hard though. Like, I just love how you speak to that point, because initially, oftentimes there's major loss, and you have to be okay as a leader to wait that out and know that might be, it's not going to be a month. You're talking months potentially. And I feel like I'm blessed to be in the position that I'm in today, because really that season was relatively short. Talking children's ministry specifically, but in general, man, that can be 3, 6 months, a year, 2 years sometimes for change like that to occur, and it can absolutely depress you as a leader to wade through that, even though you know the course that you're going on, you know it's right. So I would just encourage anybody out there who's in a season of change right now, like stay the course. If you have a vision, you have a plan, man, stay the course. God's going to surround you with the right people.
Right.
So
And you got to be, I mean, another like just mindset of going in, like you're going to have to be okay with making decisions that people aren't going to like.
yeah,
And that's okay. You know, like that's just, it's okay thing because you have to lead through it rather than like worry about what people are, you know, worrying about like what you're doing. Like God's given you a vision, he's given you the ministry, he's given you the ability to lead it. And so like you either like crumble at the thought of having tough conversations or lead through it and cast the vision and get people who are on board with it. Right. Like that's just kind of what you have to do. Okay, Rory, just kind of going through, is there anything like that you wish you did that you didn't do when you first came on and kind of took on all these teams and changes and new positions?
Yeah, I think, again, having a clear-cut plan in place when it came to personnel change. Again, that's been the hardest thing over the last year is managing that. So I've learned through a couple mistakes, particularly this year, on how to do this well and honor people along the way. It wasn't that we weren't honoring people, but there's a good way to do this. And so having that clear-cut plan, like here's step 1, step 2, step 3. And now I feel like I've got that in place, but part of that is learning through trial and error. And I made some mistakes, not perfect in this at all, but now having that clear cut plan has made the process a lot smoother, a lot easier, and a lot more honoring on the back end of that kind of change. So I think that would be the big one, because that's, again, you're dealing with people. These are people's livelihoods, their vocation, their job. And so if I would have had a better clear cut plan coming in, I think it would have saved some hurt for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I want to kind of give you like a moment to brag on your team a little bit, because I feel like one side of that is how you as the leader kind of have set that up and set people up for success. And then it's how your team then responds to that change and how they can take that and take new ground with that new season.
Yeah.
And so I kind of want to create that space of, is there anybody you want to like celebrate, or any like situations you want to celebrate of like, this is how things were, this is how things are now. And, you know, nothing's perfect. But it's definitely on an upward trajectory, which is awesome. And so I want to create that space.
Yeah, man. Well, I think, again, kids ministry specific, we've seen a lot of really cool stuff happen. In particular, we've been able to launch some new ministries and get some wins under our belt. So I think of like a guy like Josh Erickson, who's our preteens guy. He was kind of a director for a while in kids ministry space. And we had all the 1st through 6th grade crammed into one big room and breaking fire code, and not an ideal environment, especially for 4th, 5th, and 6th graders who just didn't really want to be there because we were targeting a 2nd grader. So for him to step out into a new role, launch a brand new room, build something from the ground up, what was cool is he was given the opportunity and really unleashed to build something from the ground up. And what's been cool is as he's been called to that, to kind of go pioneer something new, man, he's risen to that. And not only that, we've seen that particular demographic within our church explode.
For context, we started a brand new preteen ministry probably in March.
Yeah.
Right? In March, where it's 4th, 5th, and 6th grade in a whole separate room, whole separate program, whole separate worship, whole separate teaching, and started a winter camp. And like, it was a full on, like, it did not exist and then it existed.
Right.
Like, right? And it's just kind of.
It's crazy to think, like, there was just last week, 200 preteens, 4th, 5th, and 6th graders showed up for a camp that didn't exist last year. Like that's stinking cool. I think of another guy, Roy. He's one of the elder statesmen on our team. And there's been a lot of young people that have joined the team. And in the midst of that, he has sought them out. It's been really, really cool. Like when everybody's going to lunch and everything, like he's like jumping right in the car with them and just like, hey, let's go grab Mickey D's. Let's go grab Carl's Jr., whatever
he's like
it
in
is.
His 60s,
and he's in his 60s. And he's just like, he's just hanging out and he's ready to deposit wisdom when people want it. He's also like humble enough to say, hey, there's new ideas out there. Like it's been really stinking cool in that regard. And then I even say for our student ministry team too, what's been awesome to see is like, I would say the right people were on the bus, but now we've been able to put the right people in the right seats on the bus. So I think of like Helena. She's been an admin for years for our student ministry team, but now we've been able to position her differently and get her on the right seat. And we're watching ministry thrive. Like, I cannot wait for this fall when we launch.
And killing it, by the way.
Killing it.
Killing it, Helena. Oh, snap. By the way, if you could hear like little clicks in the background, it's Helena's keyboard. Just as like a little, just get off Facebook and do camp, Helena.
Do some work around here.
Stop doing so many things. No, it's Helena in that role is going to be really, really good. Really, really good. And obviously we have Sean on the couch.
Shawnee.
And so adding that onto the junior high, he's probably actually on Facebook. Is that what you just said? Oh man, I'm watching a dog video. What are you doing? And it's been a good thing. So Rory, just two more things. And you bragged about the team. Just brag about you for a second. Humility side. Okay. Like why do you think your new role and the departments that you're leading seem to be doing so well? Like for you, like why, like what did you do? Or is there anything that you were very intentional coming in, like that are like hack worthy of saying, this is what I did and was very intentional about doing? Because within a year, I mean, it seems like everyone's on your side, behind you, vision where you're going. You know what I mean? Like was there anything intentional that you did? Why do you think why is it being so successful? Like we're on children's ministry and student ministry on a huge momentum builder right now. Like it's crazy. So like,
yeah,
why?
Well, number one, I chalk it up to Jesus and prayer. I genuinely do think that's a part of it. Every morning I wake up and I go on a little walk around my neighborhood, and that's just my prayer time, my podcast time or whatever. And I've had to...
Another student ministry podcast.
You know
right,
it.
There's the plug.
You know
right
it.
there.
There it is. Subscribe. Hit that button.
Hey! But honestly, this has been a season of prayer for me because it's been a big change for our family. But not only that, ministry-wise, this is a change. And so prayer for sure. I would say... Again, it's the right people on the bus, but then also them in the right seats on the bus, I think is helping a lot. And then I would say our systems are getting better. We've put together like a children's ministry handbook. We're in the process of putting together a revised version of our student ministry handbook, and we're really becoming more aligned. Rather than doing a million separate things, it feels like our church as a whole is becoming more aligned. We do three things, man. We worship, we do community, and we serve. And really all of our ministries are coming in alignment with that. And because of that, I think there's some momentum. Intention-wise, I really took that model, we call it the CCB circle, and it's worship, community, and serve. Those are the three aspects of that circle, and making sure, hey, are we in alignment with that? I would say, student ministry-wise, we're killing it on Wednesdays. You and Matt, especially, you're incredibly gifted at putting together a phenomenal program. And you guys have been here for a while, but you're also like Justin. You haven't been in this role for forever, But now being able to tackle groups and put that on a new trajectory, like there's a lot of momentum and fire. And not only that, we've been talking about it now for 6 months with leaders. So I think being intentional will say, hey, we're going to go after groups. We knew that. We've known it for the long haul. We've been talking since Christmas about this with our leaders. And now the fall, it's going to come to fruition. So being intentional about that. And then also unleashing students to serve, which has been really, really cool. And we have over 100 students serving on the weekend, which is incredible. So for me, what I was intentional about was looking at that circle and saying, hey, where do we need to press down on the gas pedal more? For us, it wasn't Wednesday nights. I mean, yeah, we want more kids on Wednesday nights, but really the program was phenomenal. Now it's like, let's press into groups. Let's press into serving and watch that explode. And to a certain degree, as we've made that call, it has.
It has, yeah. Just looking at like kids summer camp, for the last I don't even know, 10 years, it's been like a requirement for staff to be a part of it, and like serve in it. Yeah. Voluntold to serve in it, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And because of the last, we did a big push for student serving, that didn't happen this year.
Right.
Because there was students serving in the kids ministry and like this stuff like that. It's been great. Because I feel like that's what we've done. We program small groups serving, program small groups serving.
Yep.
We don't do anything outside of that. It's just those three things that we're going to nail, right?
Yeah,
and that's
exactly.
kind of what we've been doing. So that's good. It's good. Okay, last question, and then we'll kind of wrap up, and then Matt could take us out on how you subscribe, how do you email, and all that stuff. Is if you could give a few hacks to people starting a new position, just good start offs, what would they be?
Yeah. Well, I think youth ministry specific. And again, this is my background. This is what I did for 10 years in Seattle. If you're going into a new youth ministry position, especially if you're new, maybe you're out of college or something, I would really encourage you to grab Doug Field's book, my first 2 years in youth ministry. Just, it's one of those seminal books that you absolutely have to have. You'll devour it. It'll be great. For new positions though, in general, I really encourage you to think through that lens of humble, hungry, and people smart. Be okay going into a new position and just stacking chairs. It's one thing to be the speaker guy on the stage and have people like, oh, wow, that was a great message. But what does it look like to serve behind the shadows? And I think that's incredibly important, to just be willing to serve wherever. Leaders really are those who serve, and God will raise you up in due time if he needs you. It needs you, but if not, like, man, be okay serving in the shadows, because your reward in heaven is going to be great. And so, man, stacking chairs, encouraging leaders, whatever that looks like, I would encourage you to do that. Be hungry too. Don't be content. Like, this is a one for me. Like, I'm that weird numbers guy. Like, numbers drive me, and I try not to have that dictate onto my teams that I serve.
And let's be honest, it drives a little bit of everybody.
It
like,
does.
Let's
It
just
does.
be real in this place. Like, if 20, if your normal attendance is like 20 and 7 show up, you're like, oh, and that's a bummer.
Right.
But it shouldn't be it's not the thing, it's a thing.
Exactly.
Right. And just kind of,
Exactly.
let's just be real.
Yeah. But I would also say, don't be content in that regard too. Like, we want to see more people meet Jesus. We want to see people far from God, near to God. And we want more of that. And so, man, to have hunger, get in God's word too, I would say, because that's where my fire is, fanned for sure, is when I read God's word. I'm reading through the book of Acts right now, and man, I'm just seeing the early church. And so, man, I would jump on that, have your fan flamed in that regard, but also the smart kind of thing. So, like, just love people well, take people out to coffee, buy them donuts, do stuff, spend time with your new team. Like, at the end of the day, it's all about relationships. And if you guys are going to do anything, you're going to win together, and you can't do it alone. And so simple hacks like, bringing donuts in on the morning, or, texting like Sean did a couple days ago, just saying, hey, what can I grab from Starbucks? Or for us, because we're weird as a team, we love McDonald's.
That's not weird, dude.
Yeah, dude, we got
That's
the
not
app
weird.
and everything. That's weird.
Majority of the team likes McDonald's. Let's be honest. I've never been, and I won't.
I got 6
What?
McNuggets for free because I bought a drink the other day, dude. It was a good time.
Okay.
Angels hit a home run, and you got six nuggies. So as far as like simple hacks like that, man, just, I think at the end of the day is, don't think of yourself more highly than you ought, as the Bible says. Just go in there, learn. Leaders are learners, all that kind of stuff, and humble yourself, get a good team around you. And I do think great things will happen, especially if God's at the center.
Yeah. And all that too, like, you're saying team because like you oversee team, like that could go with volunteers.
Oh yeah.
Like, like just whoever your team is, whether it's paid staff, volunteer staff,
Absolutely.
all of these principles still apply to that.
Yeah.
Specifically. So it's a good deal. Man, Rory, thanks for being on, man.
Yeah, seriously.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thanks
dude.
for having me,
It was
guys.
so good. Hey, everybody, we will go ahead and put in the show notes all of the references that Rory made. You dropped a wealth of books and information. So we'll go ahead and throw those in the show notes. You can find those on iTunes and Google Play. Speaking of iTunes and Google Play, hit that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with the conversations that we're having. And we also want you to be part of the conversation. So you can reach us at the Other Student Ministry Podcast at gmail.com. Once again, that's the Other Student Ministry Podcast at gmail.com. You can send in any questions you might have. We'll, in the next few episodes, start to dig through those questions, answer a few of those before we jump into our topic and our theme for the episode. So,
And also, just one last thing before we do, like, use the hashtag YMHacks.
yes.
Like, that's a big, like, a little conversation about that. Josh Griffin, Download Youth Ministry. You should actually go to that website, do all those things. Love those dudes. We were at a conference in Orange in Atlanta, and where he was teaching a workshop on hacks in youth ministry. I'm like, man, that would be a good podcast. And he goes, you should do it. And I did it. And so we started that, the hashtag YMHacks. So if you want to add to the conversation on Twitter and just share some of the hacks that maybe you started a new position. What are some of the things that you did that were very successful? Add the conversation on there. There's a whole bunch on there already. It's going to be good.
Yeah, we can all learn from each other, and that's a great way too.
Yeah, because we know nothing. I'm trying to make sure that I'm trying to get better. So this conversation has been good as well. So, guys, love ya. great being here, Rory. Honestly,
Thanks
you.
again, guys.
We'll have you back on at some point. And man, subscribe. See you next time.